For many years, America has been depicted through very simple pieces: news, meme, prejudice, and the distant perspectives. But then what happens when you place a European right in the middle of real America? They stood in a huge stadium and could only remain silent. They walked into a store and couldn't believe its scale. They ate a Texas BBQ dish and said, "This can't be normal." Each image, each experience is shattering the entire story they had heard. And right now, an uncomfortable truth emerges. Perhaps America is not as the media portrays it. Or maybe the media has never been close enough to understand it. Today, we will delve into the moments that made all of Europe reconsider everything they ever believed about America. Before talking about the shocks that Europeans are experiencing when they arrive in the US, we need to understand something more important. What did they think about America before coming here? Because the interesting thing is, most of the people appearing in these videos are not those who hate America. On the contrary, many of them grew up with Hollywood movies, American music, American brands, and American pop culture. But at the same time, they also carry a very specific image of this country in their minds. In that picture, America is often depicted as a place full of fast food, gigantic cars, endless shopping malls, and an excessively consumerist society. A place that seems wealthy, but is sometimes considered to lack cultural depth compared to the hundreds or thousands of years old cities of Europe. And to be honest, many Americans are also aware that these prejudices exist. Have you ever heard phrases like, "Americans only eat hamburgers, Americans don't walk," or "everything in America is just an exaggerated version of reality"? Interestingly, those images did not completely emerge from thin air. They were built little by little through movies, news, social media, viral videos, and even years-long word-of-mouth stories. But this is a point worth pondering. A person can watch thousands of hours of news about a country without ever setting foot in that country even once. And that's when the gap between perception and reality begins to emerge. If you only look at America through attention-grabbing headlines, you will see controversies. If you only look through the movies, you will see dramatized images. If you just glance at memes on the internet, you'll see jokes. But are those pieces enough to describe a country with over 330 million people spread across 50 states? That is the question that many European tourists start to ask themselves as soon as they arrive here. And this is the first twist. Many Europeans come to America with the mindset that they have understood America for a long time. But just after a few days, they realize they have only known a small version of the story. Because real-life America is not just what appears on the screen. It's bigger, more complex, and sometimes completely opposite to what they had imagined. An Englishman in the video candidly stated that before the trip, he thought Americans mainly ate fast food and cared little about their health. But when he arrived, what he saw were parks crowded with people exercising, families cooking at home, vibrant local communities, and a much more active lifestyle than he had imagined. That doesn't mean all prejudices are completely wrong, but it highlights an important reality. When a country is too large, too diverse, and too stratified, any simple pattern will miss a large part of the story. And perhaps that's why so many European tourists appear in recent videos with the same expression. First there was curiosity, then there was surprise, and finally the familiar phrase, "Wait a minute. Is America really like this?" If you also had a very different image of America before seeing these pictures, please leave your comments below. I am very curious to know what surprised you the most. And if you enjoy these exploratory perspectives, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel because what we are about to see next is even more fascinating. Because the biggest shock for Europeans is not the food nor the gigantic pickup trucks, but it is the moment they begin to realize the true scale of America, something that a camera finds very difficult to convey until you see it with your own eyes. And that is exactly what we will talk about next. The moment Europeans set foot in America, the first thing is not the difference in language or culture, but a feeling that is very hard to name, as if all the measures of reality in their heads suddenly shifted a few notches. They had seen America through movies, through the news, through short clips online, but when they experienced it directly, what appeared was not confirmation, but an immediate cognitive clash. A person stands in front of a Texas BBQ portion and has to pause for a few seconds just to laugh because they don't know if it's a meal for one person or a group. A large portion of meat that is no longer like a regular meal, but rather resembles a small event placed on the table. And the interesting thing is that the reaction was not negative shock, but a kind of astonishment mixed with delight, as if their old system of standards in their heads had just been reset. Then there's Costco, a place that many describe as a city within a building. When they step inside, they don't just see goods, but a consumer structure of almost illogical scale compared to Europe. Aisles as long as airport corridors, shelves as tall as city walls, and the sheer number of products makes choosing something simple turn into a more time-consuming decision than expected. Just one interesting fact: many costs have an area equivalent to tens of thousands of square meters, enough to fit several European residential buildings at once. And at this point, the question begins to arise in the viewer's mind: why is everything designed to be so large? But the shock didn't stop there. When they step into the stadiums at the World Cup, especially those built to American standards, the reaction shifts from surprise to almost overwhelming. A massive structure, lights, sound, fireworks, flyover planes. It no longer resembles a simple football match, but has become a comprehensive show designed to envelop all the senses. There are moments when the camera captures viewers standing still, speechless, as no words seem sufficient to describe the scale before their eyes. And then there's a seemingly small detail that leaves a strong impression: the gas station. In Europe, gas stations are usually a quick stop, but in the US, many places resemble a mini complex with convenience stores, fast food, spacious areas, and continuous traffic. This makes many European tourists feel like they are no longer at a stop, but in a system designed to serve all needs in the same space. The important thing is none of them came here with a negative attitude. On the contrary, the most common reactions are laughter, surprise, and continuous questions like, "Is this normal?" or "Why is it so big?" And those very questions are the focus of the entire experience. Because the first shock does not lie in the food nor in the architecture, but in the complete disruption of the expectations in their minds. Everything they thought was big turned out to be just a small version in a much larger system. And when the initial overwhelm had not yet subsided, something else began to emerge. Something even more incomprehensible than the physical scale. The way people interact, the way services operate, and the way friendliness is expressed at a level very different from what they are accustomed to. But that's just the beginning, because when they leave behind the physical shocks, Europeans will step into a layer of experience that is much harder to explain, where it is not the size, but the people themselves that make them stop and think. And that is what we will explore next. After the initial shocks of food, stadiums, or shopping malls, a question naturally begins to arise in the minds of many European tourists. Why is everything in America so big? But this is not just a question of size. It is a question of how an entire system is designed to operate on a completely different scale. To understand this, one must first place two maps side by side: Europe and the United States. Europe is a dense network of small countries, closely situated cities, ancient history, and space limited by old urban structures. Meanwhile, the United States is such a vast territory that many states are larger than some European countries combined. Just this difference in space alone creates a chain reaction that many people only realize when they experience it firsthand. One very interesting point is the culture of mobility. In many European cities, people are accustomed to walking, using trams, or moving short distances. But in the US, especially in the suburbs, everything is built around cars. From supermarkets, schools, to entertainment centers, all assume that you will drive to get there. And when a system is designed around cars instead of pedestrians, the natural scale must be larger to accommodate the speed and distance of travel. This is when the logistics economy begins to show its role. The US is not just a consumer nation, but also a massive distribution system. So, in your opinion, what creates the biggest shock? The scale, the people, or the way the media shapes perception? Leave a comment, because your perspective might be completely different from other viewers. If you find this video worth pondering, please like and subscribe so you don't miss the next perspectives on global economy, society, and culture.